Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat. In this podcast, we dive deep into the transformative power of storytelling. I firmly believe that stories have the magical ability to heal, inspire, and connect us. That's why I'm here to bring you the incredible stories of women who have journeyed through life's ups and downs and emerged as their most authentic selves. We'll explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and the courage it takes to embrace change. It's a space where authenticity shines, where the messy and the beautiful moments of life come together to create something truly extraordinary. So, brilliant listeners, get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, a burst of inspiration, and a whole lot of love. Transforming 45 is not just a podcast, it's a movement, a celebration of incredible humans who light up the world. I'm so grateful you are here, and I can't wait to embark on this transformative journey with you. Let's dive in and start transforming together. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am thrilled to welcome Kim Russo. We were connected, like almost a couple of months ago now, I guess, through the brilliant Jennifer Urzio, as many of my lovely connections are. And we had a really great conversation about many things that I'm not going to give away just yet. So, Kim is the founder and lead designer of On Brand Designs and of the Profitable Brand Designer course. So, we're going to get into all kinds of different things today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited, especially after our conversation. We had such good back and forth and finding out new things about each other. So
Yeah.
it was a good conversation that I probably could have kept going. So here we are.
Yeah, so here we are. We're gonna have more now. We'll relive some of that goodness and keep going. All right. So Kim, tell us, who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
Yes. So I am a creative brain, crafter from childhood, and lived in New York City in the hustle bustle life. I live in Charleston, South Carolina now, where it's a little chilly today, but it's mostly warm weather and living a life of sunshine and boats. And I say I manifested where I'm at right now. So I had a journey to get to here. If you had told me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if I would be where I am today, I would not, I would have no clue this is where I am. So I lived in New York City from college. I grew up in upstate New York, did college at FIT in New York City, and stayed there for 17 years.
Wow.
Working in corporate, freelancing on the side all the time, working late nights for other people, and ended up being in a relationship that was toxic. It was with somebody who was narcissistic. I helped grow a business with them and, didn't see any other life except for that. And when I finally kind of got out of it, realized that there's so much more and had to rebuild myself. So that was a process of just getting back to who I was before I met this person, but even better. So that's a big thing that I say is like, it wasn't all bad. And I came out much better and more confident on the top now. But I definitely had to manifest it and work with other people to help me. So got back into fitness, which was a passion of mine and still is. And I reached out to a relationship coach. And this is right when I was starting a business. And this relationship coach was helping me to not fall for the same type of person and to be able to keep my independence too. And that was something that every relationship I was in, even with friends, I was very codependent, lacked the confidence to, do the things that I can do now, and be as independent as I am now. So I guess I was always independent, but it was just heavy, I think, the confidence to be even more independent. So with this relationship coach, she not only helped me with finding a partner that makes sense for me, not repeating the same steps. But she also held me accountable to, if I said I want to post 3 posts on Instagram this week for my business, by the time I talk to her next week, I better have done it. If I wanted to drink more water, I had to drink more water. But she had me create this list, and I kind of apply these same things now when I'm manifesting, but take a list and write everything that I wanted in a partner. And it was all the things I didn't want. And then she had me switch it to the positive. So take all those things that I didn't want, but say the positive side of it. And then had to put that in an order of what was like a priority for me, or what was most important. And it was really interesting how things shifted, because it was like, well, do you want somebody like this if they're not doing this? And it did affect like how that person can work with me in business, because this past person didn't let me live up to who I truly am and all of the ideas that I have as an entrepreneur. So being with somebody who really supports that. And so that's been kind of how I got here today. I moved to Charleston at 37 years old, so 4 years ago, and did not know anybody, had a business already that I was just started working from home right before a pandemic, and met my partner, who is so supportive of me today and pushes me to, be the person and run the business that I want to. So.
Thank you for sharing that story. And there are so many pieces that I want to pull out from there.
Mhm.
And I want to start with the word manifesting, because I talk about it on the show from lots of different perspectives. And it has a real visceral reaction for people, right? When they hear the word, and it's either like, yeah, I'm totally in on that, or it's like, ugh, God,
Yeah.
that again, really?
Mhm.
And so I think it's important the way you talked about the action also that you put toward it, right? So
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit more about the process of the list that you made? Because
Yeah.
it makes me think about, have you seen the movie Practical Magic with
I
Nicole Kidman? It's a 90s classic.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Okay, Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock are sisters who are witches. And when Sandra Bullock is little, she writes this list of everything that she wants in a partner, but she makes it so outlandish, like one blue eye, one brown eye, that she thinks it will never happen.
Um,
This person
Fun
will never.
fact, my boyfriend has one blue eye and one brown eye.
Okay. Yeah. So she makes it so outlandish that she thinks it's impossible that that person will exist. Right. So, and then it's like the unfolding of that story.
Yeah.
So, so your process reminded me of that, but but in a more
Yeah.
productive way. So, can you talk about a little bit
Yeah.
about that process and how it works?
Absolutely. And I actually just moved a year ago. I actually built a she shed in the backyard of his house. And when I was moving, I found the list, and it says at the top, do not date anyone until they meet these 70 something things. So it was quite elaborate, but he checked off most. It was actually a very long process, and it was hard to do. And when I did this, at this point, I guess this was almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And I wasn't quite yet in the self development realm, which I wish I had started earlier, because I think that is so powerful. So, understanding manifestation, understanding, I'm not a big meditator. I do more awake meditating because I get too antsy to sit there. And like podcasting, books, all this self development, I didn't understand it when I was doing this process. It wasn't until after that I realized, oh, I manifested this person. And it was because it was the process of putting it down on paper and having it be almost like subliminally in me, that this is how it happened. So it also helped give me guidelines too when I did start to date again. But it was, I mean, it took me, this is probably a couple months of a process, because it was letting go too of the past. So creating that list first of releasing all the things that I didn't want. I was so clear on what I didn't want, because I was so fresh out of this situation. where I was not happy and I was not myself. So it was also like a therapeutic process too, to kind of realize these things. And then putting it into the positive, that's when a lot of the shifting started to happen in me, because I just felt lighter by like getting excited for what could be, and like, oh, I could have a life like this. Because it wasn't just I want like him to have, the brown eye and blue eye, but which turned out he did. But it was more so, how is this going to fit into a lifestyle that I want? How is this going to fit into my family? I've had issues with exes and families, so like that was something that was really important. Also, like how are they going to fit into me growing this business and me wanting this life that I had slowly started to reimagine. So, and I think the term manifest comes from the fact that I did all of this work, and the priority too, like, helped, because it was just creating more and more energy into this process, and more awareness of what I actually was important to me. Like, okay, do I really need, like, maybe I'm getting too minutia with this. And
No, it's
um
great. It's great.
yeah, so it just it just opened my eyes to a lot too, and what could be. So when I came to Charleston, where the girl to guy ratio is not good, also, I'm 41 now, I was 37 at the time. So, you know, there's a lot of young, beautiful Charleston women. So it was coming in with the mindset like, okay, she also held me accountable to relationships. So I wanted to move here and just make a group of girlfriends that were there for me. And so it was making that clear statement. It also was like, okay, I made this clear statement. I want to make friends first. So I have like a group around me if I am going out, and, I have a team of support. So it was accountability, because now I wrote it down. Now I have to fulfill what I promised myself.
Yeah.
So,
And that, like, fulfilling that promise to yourself, I think it's such a key part of the mindset, right? Because manifestation really is about creating a mindset where you are able to use energy
mhm,
to really think about what you want, because interestingly, the brain can't actually process negatives. So when you were going through that process and you talked about like all of the things that you didn't want, like
mhm,
I could see the heaviness in your body of that
mhm,
when you were talking about it, because it takes so much work for the brain to process like the what I don't want, or the negative, like to create an image of that is really hard
mhm.
for your brain. And so when we are making statements about this is what I want, like I could see the lightness happen in your body, because it's that's how the brain works and thinks. So when we can free up that energy to actually be forward moving and forward thinking, that's what we're doing, right? We are committing to action, to ourselves, to fulfilling that promise to ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
absolutely. So,
And then again, thinking about all of the context, because that I think is another place where people get hung up, is they're like, well, I tried to manifest $1 million and it didn't ever happen, so this thing is crap. It's like, well,
yeah. I mean, I try to every day, but
right?
it's also being, you know, one thing that I have to work on too in business is patience. Um, Not to say it's never going to happen. It's not happening right now, but I, you never know what you are manifesting, but it's keeping that vibration high, and it, it gives you something like hope to work towards too. So again, holding yourself accountable to, you have to help out the universe too.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that co-creative relationship.
Mhm.
right? And when I think about it in my own context, and I've been reminded of it lately because of some things that have been coming up in my memories, but it was probably about 5 years ago because it was pre-pandemic, where I said to my husband, I can't keep doing this anymore. So, as in being an educator,
Mhm.
I'm not going to be able to make it. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to have a voice. I want to lift women up. I want to have a company that creates spaces for women to be seen and heard. And then following that for a couple of years, in my memories, it comes up pretty regularly where I was talking about issues in education. If I could quit, I would. And at the time, I knew that I didn't want this anymore. Like I knew I did what I didn't want anymore. I knew what I did want, but I didn't think it was possible. But I kept saying it out loud.
Mhm. Didn't
And
want.
yeah, or
Mhm.
even like so if I could quit, I would.
Yeah.
I said that many, many times. And I didn't, it was interesting because I didn't ever think that I would be able to.
Mhm.
And yet here I am, right?
Mhm.
Setting that intention, even though for the most part it was like the action of it was working in my subconscious.
Mhm.
I am, I am daily surprised now that looking back on where I was and where I am and
Mhm.
where I am going is absolutely a reflection of those things that I said out loud and didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you're putting it out there in the universe.
hmm And
Yeah.
that goes back to that co creation element that
Mhm.
you were talking about, right? Like
Mhm.
when your heart is saying the truth, that's what the universe hears,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
that's what the universe responds to.
Yeah. And it allows you to take action too. So the more you put it out there, the more you're doing it. So I created this course and, I never thought that was something for me to do. But as I did all the self development, went through it, working with coaches and courses to help build my branding agency, I was like, hey, it just like came to me, you know, some of these aren't working for me or I'm not finishing them. Like there's got to be some better solutions of what's I've figured out that works for me
hmm
um, as a creative and how I can simplify it for other creatives. And I just started saying it and it's done and it's out there. And I wouldn't have thought it. Yes, it takes a lot of hard work, but the fact that I kept saying, like, this is what I want, this is what I want, makes it happen. And it goes back to two, I have a team now, and I used to always say to my blue-eyed, brown-eyed boy, we take a lot of 2-hour trips, and I actually use it in some of my marketing. I have a video on my landing page for the course where we would talk. This is probably we're like a year in. My business is 2 years in, and I still was in this sort of freelancer mindset, feeling stuck of not knowing how to get to the next level. Like I knew I used to art direct when I was working in corporate. I knew I couldn't be doing all of the work myself, but I just kept saying out loud for like a year straight on these 2-hour car rides, I need help. I need to grow this thing. I need to hire a team. I need to start art directing on repeat, not knowing how to take the action for it, but I just kept saying it. And now I have a team, I art direct, I have all these things that just because I kept saying it and putting it out there, and it just crazy how
hmm
the world works. Yeah.
Well, and
Um,
how do you have faith in that vision? Right? Like that's another component of it because we create in our minds and the translation is faith is the translation for it to actually materialize in this earth that
mhm.
we're currently, living in. So where did you find that faith component?
I think it's living in happiness now and trusting.
Yeah.
So I don't, my visions were very different 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And so I think coming from a place that, yes, I want different and more, but not that different. Like I am happy, and so I trust that the things that I'm doing now, the people that I now have in my life supporting me, the things that I am doing, the efforts I am making, I trust that it will happen.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
keeping the positive thoughts, and it's journal. I'm not a big journaler, but that's a word. But I like to take actionable steps where if I'm listening to a podcast or I just actually joined a self development book club. I've been listening to self development books for a couple of years now, and write things down, as needed. And I think because I'm doing that, it's putting me in that sort of relaxed state where I know, like, it's like I'm living in it almost.
Mhm.
So I actually there's a house that I last summer took a walk on. We go to Edisto in South Carolina Beach every summer. And since I've been going, I'm like, this is where I want to live one day, like as maybe a second home or a main home and have a second home here in Charleston. But that's like where I want to end up. And we took a walk and found this house, and the property and the back of the house, I was like, I'm in love. Not necessarily the house itself, but ever since I've seen that, every time I do any sort of visualization, I see myself there.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's my home. I can't quite get it quite yet, but I feel it. And I've been now to work on this manifestation and bringing it to life. I actually went to go check. I was actually working with Jennifer Urizio and told her about this house that I keep seeing. I was there, but I'm seeing it a little bit differently. Like there's a pool added. But I went to go look it up. So I do have vision boards, or so I work in a she shed and I have vision boards like all around me.
Yeah.
And I was going to look it up online to print it out to put on a new vision board, and it was for sale, and I got the chills. Now, I don't have the funds for it right now, but it's still for sale, and I keep seeing it dropping. So I'm like, I mean, it's got to drop a couple billion, but I I just keep putting it out there. So everyone that I talk to about it, I show them the Zillow listing. I'm like, this is going to be my house. This is like, I just keep putting it out there. Now, maybe it won't be that exact house, but it'll be that idea. And maybe it is
Nice.
that house, but I just keep putting it out there to trust that I will have that in some form. So,
Yeah, that is really powerful. And I will say, so vision boards were new to me. I had a woman on the show. Her name is Debbie Sluice, who
okay.
she changed my perspective around vision boards. And
Oh.
because she has a process that goes beyond just like cutting up pictures of things that you want and slapping them on a board, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not it. It's a whole process of really getting connected with all different areas of your life, including your relationships, and it's really about how you want to feel
Okay.
over the actual thing. So when you
Mm-hmm.
said, it might not be that house, but I know that this is how I want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking, so two stories came up for me, and one of them was before we lived in the house that I'm in now. We were living in a house that I loved, but it was becoming too small. And my mom had passed away, and I knew that I was becoming the matriarch of the family and would be doing all of the
The
hosting.
hosting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I needed space that would be home for lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a dream about so I was standing in a room with my mom, and I looked around, and it was very detailed. Like the walls were burgundy. There was a window looking outside into a tree. Like I can still see it in my mind the way I saw that dream. And I said to her, "Where are we?" And she said, "You'll see." And it was Yeah, and it was about a couple of weeks later, I was looking at the paper and not actually thinking we were in a position to buy, but my partner and I both saw this house in the paper because it was 2008. So back in the days of like actually looking in the newspaper, and we individually drove past it without even having a conversation with each other.
Oh, wow.
Got home, yeah, on the same day, and I was like, "Hey, I drove past this house," and he was like, "Yeah, so did I." We looked at it that weekend, and we were like, this is our house." And when I walked into the house, I walked into the room I had been in with my mom in my dream.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where you live now?
It is where I live now. It
Wow.
all looks very different now, but yeah, but it became our
Wow.
home where we built space
Mhm.
that we could be that place where people come home to. And that was the
Mhm.
feeling that I was
Mhm.
really connected to during that
Yeah.
process.
And yeah, then that's exactly what I have to this house or this location is having a space for people just to come stay for a week, a weekend.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the age now of getting, in my 40s where I don't want to go to bars. I don't want to, like, I just want to be at a house, like, have people over and,
Yeah.
let's just enjoy, the beach, the water, the ocean, the fresh air, you know,
Mm-hmm. That
paint
sounds like heaven.
shelves.
I'm coming, by the
Yeah.
way.
Like I would like what's helped me the most too with all of this mindset stuff and my business growth is being in rooms with women who are of the same mindset and have the same goals and are working towards the success of them being either solo entrepreneurs or like me, which technically solo, but I have a team. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's what's helping the best. So I just want to have this place where I can like have these women retreat weekends and we just, sit around in a
Yeah.
circle and talk about our goals. Yeah.
And it's that collective energy. So two more things I wanted to like really dig into with you. And that
Mhm,
was, you've talked a lot about, so that like being in a room with other women and working with coaches. And it's
mhm,
really in this society that is very individualistic and like you just have to do it yourself. You just have to do this alone. It's vulnerable to say, no,
mhm.
I did not do this alone.
Yeah.
And it's true. Nobody can do this work alone. So, what did you know? Like, what was the shift for you when you decided to welcome someone into your healing process?
Um, I think it was just again going back to the word confidence. I was given confidence that I am in the right path, but you know, what my first coach was the one that told me you can hire somebody. Let's figure out all these things that you're doing. Who is the right person to hire for your first person? And
Mm-hmm.
you can do this. But I was always so scared to do it. So it was giving me that confidence like, you are making the money to do this. You are needing this. So go ahead and find this person. And then this person led to the next person. I was like, okay. And now, and I think revisiting too, as I get to the next phase, I'll need additional help. And I still work with my first coach now. She's been helping me with my course. But it's also learning from the people that I admire. So, when I follow different podcasters or digital creators that are already sort of where I want to be, they still have coaches and consultants and they're not doing it alone. And so it's understanding that, okay, maybe I could try to, but it's going to take a lot longer to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a little bit more strategic now with who I work with because I have learned so much and some worked, some didn't, over investing was an issue that I had 2 years ago and all of that. Um, and so, but I'm more clear with what I want. And because all of that coaching and help and assistance, it has given me more clarity to be, instead of saying yes all the time, just help me, help me, help me, like, because I felt like I was drowning. I feel like now I'm in a position where, okay, I know I can't do it by myself, but strategically for my goals, who is going to make more sense to help me? Do I need to have somebody for this, or can I reach out to somebody I'm already working with or my team, or surrounding myself with these women that, I'm in these groups. So we have masterminds that are included and I can hop on at any time and be like, hey, help me. um,
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of figuring that out too. I also have a community for designers, and that's something I'm pushing to grow as well, to be that support where, again, it's not even a huge investment because it comes with the course. One day I might, add it to be a little bit more, but not a lot, because I want people to not feel like they were alone. And that's part of what I was going through when I was trying to have this like freelancer to entrepreneur shift. And part of it too was being a little bit older starting this and feeling a little bit behind. And like I'm catching up, and I sometimes still like,
I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, I'm starting at
yeah.
47. I got it. I hear you, sister.
Yeah. I'm like, man, if I had all these like intentions and mindset and beliefs and were with these people that were around me like 10 years ago, then I would probably have that beach house right now. but then I have to go back, and I guess this goes back to like the whole mindset is I have to remind myself. And actually sometimes when I say that out loud, I'll go on Instagram for like a minute to mindlessly scroll when I need a break, and I'll get one of those like word affirmation things that are like, you are at exactly where you're supposed to be in life, and it's going to come, something along those lines. I'm like, how is this in my head right now?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And it is true. Like 10 years ago, or when sometimes I think, like, why didn't I do this at the beginning? And the truth is, I couldn't even begin to dream big enough at that point.
hmm
It was like I needed every experience that I had that brought me to this point, that
hmm
let me know, like, now is the
now's the
time. You
time.
were you would not have been ready before,
Yeah.
but all of the experiences that you have had are what set you up to be able to do this at this
hmm
point in time in your life. And that brings me back to the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, because when I asked you about faith, you said happiness, and that like made me emotional, because so much of what we are conditioned to believe is the struggle, right? And that the faith, really more than anything, is struggle. But the the truth is, it is that sense of happiness. And I am also working with a really brilliant teacher in a course that I am taking right now. And through some of the work I was doing, I had this memory, this very, very tangible memory of going back to when I was really little. So it was like, I remember specifically, it was grade 1. And so I was like 6. So
hmm
prior to being 6 years old, I I like, when I look at pictures of myself, I can remember this feeling of just no, like everything just works out.
hmm
I used to win things all the time. Like everything, I just knew. It was never even a question. Just I knew that everything was going to work out and
hmm
everything was great. Life was wonderful and my eyes were sparkly. And but in grade 1, I was walking with a girl. She was a little bit older than I was. We had both entered into, I think it was a poster contest. We were walking down to the office, I think, to like put our names into the contest. And she said to me, "So, do you think you're going to win?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I always win. Of course, I think I'm going to win." And
hmm
she looked at me and said, "Oh, you should not think that way." Yeah, she was like, if you think like that, you're going to be always disappointed. You should always think that you're not going to win, and that expect like disappointment, and then if something good actually happens, then it'll be like a surprise.
No.
Right. But she said that to me, and in the moment I was like, no, like that doesn't feel right to me, but you do you, whatever. But then
Yeah.
I didn't win that contest. And I was like, oh, she was right. And
Oh.
in a heartbeat, I went from being this girl who just joyfully lived, knowing that everything was going to be okay, to expecting disappointment and expecting the worst.
Oh.
Yeah. And so in this work that I'm doing now, I had that memory. And and again, it's in that community, it's in healing community with other women who have been there and done that, and other humans.
Mhm.
And she said to me, like, do you remember what it was like to be that 6-year-old before that story happened? And I said, yeah. She said, do you remember what that felt like? I said, yeah, I do. She was like, okay, from now on, that little girl is the one who makes all the decisions in the world.
Mhm.
And that reconnection to joy and
Mhm.
happiness, and the way it reconnects me to faith, has been such a shift that
Mhm.
just feels good,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that experience of happiness that you talked
Mhm.
about, and having things feel good in your body,
Mhm.
it's our natural state, right? That's what we're actually meant to do.
Yeah. And it's also like a work in progress. So I actually just started based on the recommendation from someone who leads a female networking group that I'm in. No, and I've talked about celebrating the wins. And I had started to get better with it where like I got this really, I'm selling VIP days now working with clients. And it took me a year to like really get this going. And then now it's just flowing in. And I celebrated like, woohoo, okay, now on to the next. And when I finished my course, okay, I did this, good, great, now on to the next. So I was trying to celebrate, but I wasn't really celebrating because my to-do list is never ending. And so she's
Mhm.
like, have you tried a win jar? And so this is only a couple weeks ago, like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I got a win jar, and I can show it to you quick.
Yeah.
I guess people listening won't see, but I'm already filling it up, and I put win jar, and I got colored
Oh,
note cards because I'm artsy, and it's been it's just another thing to get you in the right mindset, and it's helping me not to forget to celebrate it. Even though I'm still moving on to the next, it's a little more of an action step that I'm taking to celebrate it. And um then I will go back, like I think I'm going to do it once a quarter and read back my wins. And so it's just taking action steps to that. Anytime I'm given any sort of instructions that will help out, it will also like get me to a place where I'm reassuring myself that it's going to happen or that it is happening and I'm not just forgetting these things and sweeping them under the rug. I have like these mentors that teach me every day. So Jennifer Urizio, one thing she actually gave me, it was my birthday when we were working together, and she sent me. She's like, "What do you believe in?" And so I'm Jewish because of my mom. My dad's Catholic, boyfriend's Baptist. So I'm kind of, as far as religion goes, it's not like I have a specific thing. I said I believe in God. I don't have I don't practice all these things, but I do believe in it. So she sent me this little painted box that she made for me called the God box. And so I put in what I need help with. And so I wrote on a little piece of paper and put in this box, this is what I like, please help me to achieve this. Please help me to do this. And then set it and forget it. And I have it by my nightstand. And I once in a while think of something like, okay, if I'm getting frustrated, instead of getting frustrated, say, I need help with this. And so I'm an actionable person. So if you tell me to do something, it's going to help me do better and um, get there faster, I'm going to do it. So I always coaches and gym. I'm big into the gym too. So any sort of fitness, they like love to work with me because I'm an action taker, but I need accountability.
yeah. And
So,
and that's kind of what those strategies that you were just talking about provide, right? They provide accountability. When you ask for help and you write it down, or you celebrate something by writing it down so you can go back to it, it is that bit of accountability.
mhm,
Or the other way to phrase it is like it's evidence. Right? Our human brains like to doubt things, even when we
mhm,
have tangible evidence that it's
yeah,
actually like these things are actually happening. So
yeah,
the accountability and the evidence of having those physically written down in spaces is
mhm,
beautiful. I really love those strategies. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing them.
Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
ultimately too, it's about releasing the past too, because I did have a different idea of where I'd be. And now I've totally switched to what I do want as being someone in my 40s now. It was different before. And letting go of some of the things that I thought I had to do, especially as a female, I think has
Mm,
been a huge impact of releasing some of those things and just letting what comes to my vision be my path and
yeah.
not.
What are some of the things you find that you are letting go of? So, like you said, as especially as a woman. So, what are some of those things that you're releasing?
Um, Having children is a big
Mm,
one. So it was something I always wanted and it just didn't align. I don't know if it was the New York City lifestyle or again, going back to not being in relationships where I, you know, made myself a priority or I gave too much. I'm a people pleaser to the core and I did it to my detriment. And so there was a reason why it didn't happen. And I'm at the point now where I don't see that in any of my visions. I don't see myself going to be like a soccer mom and doing this, but I love kids. And that was something that I had to really, really think about and know that I'm not disappointing other people, that I'm not disappointing myself too, because it's expected and I'm great with kids, but I have four nieces and I treat them or think of them, that they'll be there for me whenever. And I love them to death. But
yeah.
it was that like going back to like, oh, if I started this years ago, I would have been at this place. If I did this years ago, but again, trusting that this is my path and now releasing that I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that and I'm supposed to be married already and I'm, you know, all these things that when I was in high school, I was like, well, I want to be married with kids at 26. Like, and then that number kept shifting. And now it's just, okay, just release. It'll happen when it happens. I mean, even with my partner now, he gets pressure a lot. Like, when are you going to pop the question? When are you going to pop the question? Like, when are y'all going to get engaged? And we've talked about it. It's going to happen, but releasing the pressure too from him. I'm not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. We have a life together. It will happen at some point, but letting go of those pressures and focusing on right now what is going to get me to my goal faster. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's some really beautiful self awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of really being able to release what you know is not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Trust that what is for you will always show up and will be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy, but it is always worth it. Kim, thank you so much for this conversation today. This was really, really fun and beautiful. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope we can talk again soon and catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, also, the thing we didn't talk about a lot was that Kim is a really brilliant graphic designer and art director and creative. And so if you would like to work with her, all of her links will be in the show notes so you can get connected with her for whatever you might need.
Yeah, and on brand designs, it's on underscore underscore designs is my Instagram. That's where I respond to the most with DM. It's the easiest for me, but I'm on all platforms. And as a creative, I'm helping other business owners. I don't do social media, but I help them with their graphics. And so I like.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey today. Your support means the world to me. If you resonated with our conversations and want to uplift the Transforming 45 community, here's what you can do. One, subscribe and share. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value here, share it with your friends, family, and anyone seeking inspiration. Two, leave a review. On whatever platform you are listening on, your words can make a significant impact and help others find their way to these transformative stories. Three, connect. Join the conversation on my social media platforms. Follow me at lboat for updates, behind the scenes, and more heart centered content. And 4, guest recommendations. If you know someone whose story could inspire someone else, reach out and let me know. I love connecting with diverse voices that carry the power to transform lives. Remember, it is your support that is the magic in my mission. Together, we can create a community of empowerment, growth, and healing. Thank you for being part of the Transforming 45 family. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing your journey.